Hello, Marvel fans, and welcome to What's New in Marvel Unlimited, where we take a look at the comics new to the Marvel Unlimited app. As always, there's a great selection of interesting stuff to take a look at. We've done our reading, and now we're here to help you navigate the vast chronicles of comics within the Marvel Unlimited app.
Welcome back to What's New in Marvel Unlimited. This is Dan, and each week my daughter Siena and I are taking a look at which Marvel comics are releasing digitally through the Marvel Unlimited app. For this week, focusing on the week of January 21st to 27th, 2024. There's Siena.
Hi.
Ready to read some comics or talk about some comics?
Absolutely.
Cool. So, we had a pretty good list of books this week. Going to be fun to talk about. Before we get into that, just wanted to note real quick, we did get some reader mail. Amanda, who's been with us for a while now, listened to the podcast that Dwayne and I have been doing for the last couple of years, wrote in to say hi, enjoying the podcast. I also read the Ghost Rider Annual when it came out in paper and liked it and enjoyed seeing Elsa. It was also my introduction to Hood. So Hood is one of the characters there. I don't know if we talked about him much, but he's kind of an interesting character. Sort of a normal crook who somehow accidentally defeats a demon and steals his stuff and gets supernatural powers.
Mm-hmm.
So, but very cool. Thanks for writing in, Amanda. Glad you're enjoying things, and hopefully finding some more cool stuff in this week's edition. So, you want to take us through and see a little bit of what we have here, Sienna?
Yep. Okay, so a quick overview for this week. We have 21 new items. 5 of those are Infinity Comics, 16 are regular monthly issues, and there are 3 first issues. So if we're starting with the Infinity Comics, we have Alligator Loki number 32, Avengers United number 15, Marvel's Voices number 86, Spider-Man Unlimited number 20, and X-Men Unlimited number 123.
Yep, and we're starting to, as we're tracking these, I've got them in a little chart. We're starting to see that kind of Alligator Loki, Avengers United, Marvel's Voices, Spider-Man Unlimited, and X-Men Unlimited seem to be sort of the core titles, really, for Infinity Comics. I've been reading the Avengers United ones. Those are kind of interesting. The Marvel's Voices and X-Men Unlimited I'm reading as well. So, have you been keeping up on any of these at all, or?
I checked out Alligator Loki a couple of times, and I think it's just kind of cute.
So, like the Spider-Man Unlimited, that's kind of you're doing the Spider-Man thing. Haven't really checked that one out yet.
I guess I'm kind of just, I don't know. I just don't really read the Unlimited ones, and I don't know why.
Well, they really are kind of an acquired taste in some ways, so I'm not surprised. I've tried a few of them, and I'm trying to get used to them, because I want to see how this goes, and it is one of the sort of unusual features about Unlimited. Yeah, I'm having trouble really getting excited about those as well. Even though it is cool, they come out every week and the like, I'm still adjusting to that.
I feel like I probably would like to read them more if I hadn't started reading the normal ones
regular
first.
Ones?
Because now I feel like it'll be weird if I try to go into those.
There you go.
But they are pretty cool.
There you go. And and there's 5 of them. So if that is something you're interested in, they are continuing to roll them on out. How about the regular comics? What do we got for this week?
Okay, so we have the spine-tingling Spider-Man number 1.
Right, and then which other number 1s?
And we have Crypt of Shadows number 1 and the Sensational She-Hulk number 1.
Sure. So, did you read any of those?
I read all 3 of those.
Okay, and what did you think of them?
I like the Spider-Man one because, as you all know, I love Spider-Man, but it was also kind of a horror kind of thing, which I thought was cool, and the art was really cool as well. A lot of horror stuff has a lot of cool art, I've noticed.
Yeah,
so
the artists
like
get a
that.
chance to do their thing with some crazier sorts of stuff. I also read that one. It was interesting in that it's continued very much.
Yeah.
I think that this is a story that could have been served by having a little bit more pages, because I'm like just getting into it and then it's like continued next issue. So, but I agree. I think it's fun stuff. Crypt of Shadows was a little bit different. It's what I'd call an anthology. Basically had a number of small stories featuring different heroes, Daredevil or whoever, with Doctor Strange's brother who's stuck in a mirror as a vampire as sort of the narrator in between the stories. And then at the end, we won't give it away, but something
crazy happens.
So we'll see that. Even though it's a one-shot, it appears that this is something that's leading into something in the Doctor Strange universe. So if you're a Doctor Strange fan, checking out Crypt of Shadows might be good.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sensational She-Hulk.
I thought that one was really good. I think I really like it because I like the show a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was just like it was kind of fun. Like there wasn't that much serious stuff going on. It was just kind of her life and what's happening. So.
And this is actually kind of interesting. She-Hulk had an ongoing series last year. It went to like issue 11 or something like this. Same writer.
Yeah.
Much the same storyline. I don't really know why they canceled it and restarted it, except maybe just to get another number one. Because it's really continuing the same storyline as before. It's interesting because even though this is a number one, the story of her and Jack of Hearts, who's her boyfriend, who... He's a character who's been around since way back in the 80s. He ends up absorbing radiation. And the problem is that unless he's super full of radiation, if he's around She-Hulk, he absorbs all of her radiation and turns her back into Jen Walters and weakens her.
Yeah.
So he's got to be like super radioactive before they can hang out. And then she's got lawyer things she's doing and hanging out with friends and the like. It's a very different kind of comic.
Yeah, but then at the end of that one, there's also kind of like a leading into the next thing where something kind of dramatic happens.
Yep, so I find these to be different, but they are actually quite good. I love the covers. Jen Martell does a lot of covers on these. They're really cool. And then just in general, these are kind of I think, like you say, if you enjoy the She-Hulk TV show, they've got kind of that same vibe.
Yeah. So. I did think it was interesting. There was like another comic on the end of it.
Yes, like a backup story there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was thinking that it was kind of interesting because I noticed the art was different, and I was like, is this a completely different story? Because it felt like the other one had just ended, and then there was more.
Yep.
And I was...
So what'll happen there is if either they have a story that's a little bit short, or if they want to try and get a little bit more money out of the issue by pricing it up a little more, they can put another story. A lot of times they're like 8 pages at the end of the regular one.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they're completely different. Like back in the day, a lot of times I collected like The Flash, and there would be Dr. Fate backup stories at the end or whatever. But in this case, sort of a related backup story. Good stuff, but She-Hulk is, I think, something that's going to be an acquired taste for some people, but I actually think it's a cool book, and I've been enjoying it, maybe more than I figured I would. But I've always been a She-Hulk fan, even back to, there was a guy named John Byrne who did some of the same sort of tongue-in-cheek, sort of more fun She-Hulk books back in the day. And this is kind of in that same vein.
Okay, next we have Avengers Incorporated, number 2. Which I also read.
Yep.
And I'm actually very interested in this story because the first one had all of the like dead villains are coming back to life and fighting her. And I think that it's got a really interesting story with the whole like this guy is possessed by Vision or whatever.
Yep. And nobody really knows exactly why or what's going on. And it's also got a detective / spy thriller kind of thing where the Wasp and the Vision, or the guy who might be Victor Shade, who might be the Vision, are kind of going in and solving almost like one-off mysteries while there's this larger mystery as well. So kind of like that X-Files sort of format from back in the day. So I really enjoyed that one. Talk about that a little later. We also have a Star Wars book. This is the Obi-Wan Kenobi adaptation, again. If you like the TV show and want to read it in comic form, or if you didn't have Disney Plus and you wanted to see what happened that one would work for you, but it is a strict adaptation of the show, so there's nothing different from there. And then Daredevil. It sounded like you might have read that one as well.
I actually really like this one. I'm still kind of confused about, like, the whole his past thing, but I'm kind of just ignoring that and
Yes.
This is what he's doing, and it doesn't matter what he was doing before.
There's a lot of past with Daredevil. Some of the things, for those of you listening, if you're not reading Daredevil right now, that she's talking about is we've got Stick, we've got Elektra, we've got the Hand, we've got the Fist, we've got all sorts.
Hand and the Fist?
There's the Hand and the Fist. Did you not notice that?
I don't know these characters like you do.
Well, the Hand and the Fist are the organizations.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But essentially, the entire muddied history of Daredevil is being played out again in these comics. So, a couple of years ago, more than that, Chip Zdarsky's had a really strong run on Daredevil for a while, and he just passed the torch recently to Saladin Ahmed. And him and Aaron Cooder are doing some really cool stuff on this now. So I have been enjoying the new Daredevil, liking that, seeing where it's going, see how they continue here. And that, again, only on issue number 2 now, and they are kind of taking a new direction. So it's a good one to check out if you're looking for something new. Then we got a bunch of X books.
Yeah.
Astonishing Iceman, Children of the Vault. I've read both of those, and they are very much in... X-Men right now is in a whole thing where basically most of the X-universe has been exterminated. An organization called Orcus has essentially either killed or exiled almost all the mutants on the planet, and you've got a few of them left, like Iceman, who are going around trying to continue to sort of do good and fight against Orcus. And then Children of the Vault is about a group that are X-Men villains that are now returning to Earth and causing all sorts of trouble because the X-Men are no longer there to stop them. So, interesting stuff. Deadpool, of course. Batter Blood. That's a one we'll talk about here in a little bit. It's actually a 5-issue miniseries that just completed. So if you're a Deadpool fan, great time to come in and read those if you haven't been, because the miniseries is over. You can kind of catch up on that now. Incredible Hulk. Did you read that one by any chance?
I did not, because it's on number 5, and
Yep.
I was mostly focusing on number 1s.
Yep, and issue 5 is actually, it's part 2 of an ongoing story as well. So they're doing kind of shorter stories, so it's not that hard to catch up. The art and stuff in this is really interesting. I'm enjoying it. Hit and miss with Incredible Hulk. Sometimes I like them, sometimes they really just are not my thing. But these have been really fun. So
The Hulk was actually in 2 of the ones I read, though.
yeah,
She-Hulk and the Crypt of Shadows. He was in both of those.
no, oh yeah, because he was sitting around talking to the She-Hulk just about right, yeah,
Well, he showed up near the end.
yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of talking about how he had a better go of it because she can control her powers and everything and the like, and he kind of can't. So, Scarlet Witch, nearing the end. That's been an interesting series. The art's really cool. The story's interesting. She's kind of opened a shop, and there's a door in the shop where people who have nowhere else to go will find that door in front of them, and then they walk through and can ask the Scarlet Witch for help. It's actually interesting because it reminds me a little bit of the Midnight Mission concept that's been going on in Moon Knight for the last while, where Moon Knight has essentially opened an office in New York where people can come who need help and ask him for help, almost like a Godfather type situation.
And then we have Miles Morales Spider-Man, which is on number 11. And I started this series, but I didn't get farther than like number 4. But I am very interested in reading it because I do love him. But from what I saw in the first few issues, it's really cool. And it's got like it's kind of similar to the Spider-Man India one in a way, but I believe the whole concept of it was that the government or whatever doesn't like superheroes having like their masks on or
Yeah.
things like that. It's kind of the same thing as Adventures Incorporated, I think, in a way.
Well,
But
they're now into
yeah.
a completely different storyline, and now it's all about vampires. This one's got Blade in it. I actually read this one
Oh.
and a couple of them,
I see
and
that.
it is very. It's actually very. What would you call it? It's almost like an old style comic in that it's got a lot of panels, it's got a lot of text. It actually took me longer to read than most of the comics, so it's got a lot more sort of compression of story going on, and it's interesting stuff. Vampires seem to really be the thing coming up. I know we talked about how they're going to have a vampire event coming up, and all sorts of things that they're doing to market that and everything, but this is kind of part of that. Miles is hanging out with Blade, and they're fighting vampires and all sorts of things going on.
Yeah. And then Invincible Iron Man is also on number 11.
Yep.
And I downloaded all of these because I knew I was going to be able to read them all for this, but I do think it looks pretty cool. I just haven't started it yet. I have no idea what it's about.
So this is one of the differences is I've been reading comics for 40 years, and after we did this for like 2 weeks, I had just gone and reread everything that hadn't started, because it takes me about 5 minutes to read a modern comic book. And so I'm up to date on all of this stuff. Invincible Iron Man right now is almost like an X-Men comic. So I'm a huge Iron Man fan. I've been a fan of Iron Man for pretty much my whole life. And it's been a little weird. He is currently on his honeymoon with one of the mutants from X-Men. It's actually one of the leaders, Emma Frost, was the White Queen of the Hellfire Club for a long time. She's been a villain. She's been a good guy. But they have kind of this weird fake marriage they're doing that allows them to try and take down this Orcus organization. Because Orcus not only killed all the mutants, but they also went to the stock exchange and bought Stark International. So both of them are angry, and they've teamed up and are trying to defeat Orcus. So it's a weird story. I'm not sure it's a particularly believable story. It's a very comic book story, but it's pretty fun. So
okay, and then we have Ghost Rider, which is on number 19.
Yep.
Which I also think looks cool, but I haven't had a chance to start. I did read the Ghost Rider annual. That's the only one I've read.
Yep.
But I do think that the character seems cool. And I probably will be reading some of this eventually.
Yeah, Ghost Rider this week was weird. I always find it a little bit unsettling when you've got like murderous children and stuff like that. And this is essentially a story where Mephisto takes over a small town and essentially corrupts the children to get them to try and kill their parents and stuff.
Like that Scooby-Doo episode.
It's like the Scooby-Doo episode.
That Ben hates.
Only super murdery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't just trying to scare their parents away so they could watch TV all day.
Correct.
They're trying to actually kill them.
Murdering them and throwing them in a pit to give their souls to Mephisto.
Okay.
So not really like the Scooby-Doo episode when it comes down.
Kind of.
So, in any case, yeah. But art's really cool in there. Story's very dark, but it's well done.
And then we have Moon Knight, which is on number 28.
Yeah, Moon Knight. I mean, I love Moon Knight. We did a whole podcast. You know.
I know.
Moon Knight. So I'd read these long ago because I buy all of these on the newsstand. Moon Knight and Daredevil are the only books I buy on the newsstand from Marvel these days. But this is right in the middle of sort of the last days of Moon Knight storyline, which is going to end with Moon Knight dying in issue 30, they say. And I say they say because I already know, but Marvel Unlimited won't have it for a couple of months yet. So... but it's not a great onboarding point. If you haven't been reading Moon Knight, you don't want to start with number 28. But on the other hand, the Jed McKay Moon Knight story line, basically starting from 1, going back a couple of years ago, right up until the relaunch now with Vengeance of the Moon Knight, is one of the best things that Marvel has going on. So I would always recommend reading these new Moon Knights. There's great Moon Knight, and there's some questionable Moon Knight over the years. This is one of the great Moon Knights.
And then lastly, we have Star Wars number 39.
Sure. Still in that Dark Droids storyline, so that's kind of moving along there. Those are interesting. I'm liking to see where that goes. So, but again, we talked about that last week. If you're interested in that, you want to go and track down the list and start back at Dark Droids number 1 and see where it goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
So, jumping on points, we had 3: Spine-Tingling Spider-Man, Sensational She-Hulk, and Crypt of Shadows. We talked about all of those already. The main thing to keep in mind is that there were a lot of horror-y type of things. That's actually because these came out 3 months ago, basically the week before Halloween. So Marvel had a few extra books that they were putting out kind of to hit the spooky season and get people a little something that's a bit on the scary side when we're heading into the Halloween time. So kind of cool that, Spine-Tingling, Crypt of Shadows, all those came out this week. Crypt of Shadows is a one-shot, but it leads into a storyline now in Doctor Strange.
Okay.
So even though it seems like it's very much a cliffhanger, that cliffhanger is continued off in Doctor Strange sometime soon. From what I hear, I'm not going to be in another Crypt of Shadows book.
Okay. So the 2 things we have that are bingeable are Crypt of Shadows, because it's a one-shot so that you can understand it without having to go into anything else. And then if you wanted to read more about it, it'll be in the Doctor Strange series sometime in the future.
Yep.
And then Deadpool, Better Than Blood.
Yep. Finished up its miniseries. Yeah, the Crypt of Shadows, by the way, that actually was a Marvel comic back in the 70s. They had one that was kind of like that, where there was, kind of somebody telling these stories and whatever. Not in the actual comic universe, but more just like as an actual regular horror story.
Yeah.
So that kind of riffs on some of the old stuff as well. One of the other thing about bingeable, there's going to be a lot of binging coming up if you want to, because of the 16 regular comics that we talked about this week. 8 of them either just ended or will be ending in the next 3 months. So almost everything that we're reading this week is shutting down and either rebooting or going away.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Okay. So what was your pick for this week?
I picked Avengers Incorporated. I actually think I'm really enjoying that story. It's different and interesting. I like the characters. I like the way they're doing the characters. The art is really very intricate and cool. So I think we don't try and get in the creators on every book we talk about because it just take too long, but I'd like to note that since it's one of my picks, it's written by Al Ewing, who's done a lot of great stuff. Leonard Kirk and Alex Sinclair are doing the art. So really a good just sort of, I don't know, fun sort of mystery-ish kind of book. Call back to some old characters. Looking forward to the next one. How about you?
I liked She-Hulk because I actually really liked the show, and so when I saw there was a She-Hulk, I was very interested to see like how similar it was going to be to the show, and it was very similar, and it had kind of the same vibe, which I really enjoyed, because I kind of like the slice of life sort of things, which is what She-Hulk was in the show and also was in this, while still having some of that like action and like superhero stuff going on. So I like the mix of that, and that's why I liked She-Hulk.
Yeah, it's also interesting that it's almost like an ensemble book, because she's got so many of her friends and other folks that kind of come in. Either they have their little fight club, or Hellcat, Patsy Walker, is in regularly just kind of hanging out and having coffee and stuff like this. So it is really almost more like Giant Days for superheroes in some ways, like Archie for superheroes type of stuff. And so it's kind of cool. I think it's an interesting sort of diversion from sort of the normal kind of Marvel stuff. All right, so with that, Got Avengers Incorporated and She-Hulk as our picks. That ends our review for this week for the comics coming out on January 22nd. Next episode, we're going to be taking a look at books from the January 28th to February 3rd. That should be hitting your podcast feed on Tuesday, January 29th. So look for us there.
And we'd love to hear from you, so email us at unlimitedanswers@comicsovertime.com or find us on Instagram or Blue Sky at comicsovertime. Make sure to subscribe now in order to get our weekly look at what is new on the Marvel Unlimited app. You can find us anywhere fine podcasts are available, including iTunes, Google, Amazon, Spotify, and our hosting platform, Podbean.
Yeah, and like Sienna says, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know what your favorites were this week. What comic books did you find on Unlimited that you really enjoyed? Be interested to hear what you're thinking of the stuff that came out recently. Sienna, I think that's it for this week. Have a great one, folks. We'll talk to you next week.